Hello, and welcome to Advanced Microeconomic Theory. I'm Professor Naomi Utgoff of the United States Naval Academy, and in this video we'll give an example of how to execute Gale and Shapley's deferred acceptance algorithm in a marriage problem. The deferred acceptance algorithm is Gale and Shapley's method for finding a stable match in a two-sided matching market in which each person has strict preferences over people on the other side. One side proposes to the other, and the other side accepts or rejects proposals until the algorithm terminates. Here we have a marriage market containing 3 men and 2 women, and a preference relation for each of these 5 people. Note that W1's preference relation doesn't list M3. That is to say that she would rather be single than married to M3. Now we'll execute the men proposing deferred acceptance algorithm. I always make a table with the columns as shown so I can keep track of the execution. Each man not tentatively matched proposes to his favorite woman who hasn't rejected him yet. In round 1, no man is tentatively matched, and no man has any prior rejections, so each man proposes to his favorite woman. Each woman tentatively accepts her favorite proposal among all the proposals she received, if any. W2 received only one proposal, from M1. She finds M1 acceptable, so she holds his proposal for now. W1 received proposals from M1 and M3. She holds M2 and rejects M3 since she prefers M2, and indeed finds M3 unacceptable. M3 was rejected, so he is single at the end of round 1. All proposals, tentative acceptances, and rejections from round 1 are complete. Round 1 ends. Round 2 begins. M1 and M2 do not propose in round 2, or alternatively, they repeat the proposals that W2 and W1 held in round 1. In any event, M3 now proposes to W2, his favorite woman who hasn't rejected him in any previous round. The tentative assignment changes because W2 rejects M1 and holds M3. W2 held a proposal from M1 and received a proposal from M3. She prefers M3 to M1, so she rejects M1 and holds M3. M1 is now tentatively single. Round 2 ends. Round 3 begins. M1 proposes to W1, his favorite woman who hasn't rejected him yet. The tentative assignment changes again because W1 rejects M2 and accepts M1. W1 held a proposal from M2 and received a proposal from M1. She prefers M1 to M2, so she rejects M2 and holds M1. M2 is now tentatively single. Round 3 ends. Round 4 begins. M2 proposes to W2, his favorite woman who hasn't rejected him yet. The tentative assignment does not change because W2 rejects M2. Round 4 ends. The end of round 4 is the end of the men proposing deferred acceptance algorithm, since there are no new proposals because every man either has his most recent proposal accepted, in the case of M1 and M3, or has been rejected by both women, in the case of M2. Now we'll execute the women proposing deferred acceptance algorithm in the same marriage market. W1 proposes to her favorite man, M1. W2 proposes to her favorite man, M3. Here's the tentative assignment after round 1. M1 receives a proposal only from W1, and he finds it acceptable, so he accepts. M2 received no proposals, so he is single at the end of round 1. M3 receives a proposal only from W2, and he finds it acceptable, so he accepts. That's the end of round 1, and in fact it is the end of the woman proposing deferred acceptance algorithm, since there were no rejections in the very first round. Thanks so much for watching this video about executing the deferred acceptance algorithm in a marriage problem. In the next video, we'll study the deferred acceptance algorithm in a setting of college admissions.